Deputy Burton has 10 minutes.
Well, as every school child knows, the proclamation of 1916 proudly promises to cherish all the children of the nation equally. And as Easter approaches and the Minister for Education heads to the annual round of teachers' conferences, her report card for this year will consist of an endless round of broken promises and a big black mark. Can I remind her of the promises that she's broken so far in relation to primary education, just this year alone? Failure to provide adequate capitation grants for primary schools, as promised by Fianna Fáil before the general election. The abandonment of the solemn election promise to reduce school sizes, and the INTO arranged monster meetings in every town in this country, and Fianna Fáil promised solemnly school class sizes will be reduced to give the children room to learn in the modern primary school. The axing of the summer grant scheme of special and emergency repairs, the long fingering and the axing at the moment of many school extension programmes and replacements of prefabs. But with Fianna Fáil safely back in office, does the Minister for Education even care? She may feel she's had the last laugh, particularly on the INTO and the various educational interests. Such is the arrogance of the Minister that the abandonment of the promise on class sizes was announced via a website notice. Many principals at the moment are discovering that their promised extension has slipped from urgent to some undefined time in the future, as the Minister seeks to take the axe to significant elements of the capital programme for school extensions and refurbishments and the replacement of prefabs. The basic costs faced by schools, water charges, refuse collection, insurances are all escalating dramatically. We now have schools across the country struggling to provide a basic service to keep the heating on, to keep the water running and to keep the doors open. This is a far cry from the idyllic digital school of the 21st century that the Minister's website talks about. That's before we even get into computers, PE gear and school books. In a modern education system, these shouldn't be optional extras. The Minister's failure to properly fund primary schools stands alongside her other great failure to introduce a proper system of preschool education. While primary education is maintained by her as the Cinderella of the education system, there isn't even a chance that children, particularly those from a disadvantaged background, will get the kind of preschool education that all of the research shows pays dividends for life, for the child, for the family and for society. It is remarkable that the early start system introduced by her predecessor, the Labour Minister for Education, Niamh Breathnach, when resources were much tighter and we were only growing the Celtic Tiger, Minister, that remains as a lonely project in giving poorer children a head start. Fundraising for primary schools is a long-established and even cherished tradition in this country. Right around the country, ambitious boards of management and parents' associations hold Christmas fairs, Easter fairs, race nights, you name it, they do it, all to improve their children's access to the best education possible. This fundraising, which has been an important bonding element for school communities down the decades, is meant to be for extras such as computers, sports facilities, gardens, music, landscaping the school grounds and so on. Some years ago, the Taoiseach spoke of his admiration for Robert Putnam, the author of Bowling Alone, and about the need to create social connections and social capital in an increasing alienated society. In many ways, fundraising by school communities is almost a model of that kind of social community. But for the Minister to rely on the social capital of school communities for fundraising for essential expenses is to abuse the endless goodwill of parents, never mind the kind of burden it puts on school principals. And since Minister Hanafin took control of the Department of Education, school principals and teachers are busier and busier as they cope with the never-ending increase in the mountain of paperwork that she has instructed her department to demand of them. Just as drowning schools in paperwork is becoming less fashionable in the UK because of the time it takes from teaching and learning, our Department of Education decided that this paper chase would be a fabulous way of slowing down demands for educational resources, so that principals and teachers and boards are left chasing, where is our school extension? How does the Minister expect principals and boards of management to fundraise to meet core expenses when they are already so busy dealing with the paperwork for special needs applications for children? Not to mention the Section 29 appeals by parents who can't get their children into local schools because there aren't enough places to cater for the thousands of houses that have been built in growing areas such as my own constituency of Dublin West. I have called on the Minister before to sit down with all of the parties involved in education in areas such as Dublin West and plan how we best use the resources to give all our children a head start in education. Currently, the situation of school planning, site acquisition and budgetary provision can only be described as a dog's dinner. Schools which have been promised extensions, such as St Bridget's in Castleknock in Beach Park, have now been dropped from the urgent list to some indefinite time in the future. At a time when the Minister expresses concern about a developing obesity crisis among school children, the gym for Castleknock Community College, now promised for more than 9 years by Fianna Fáil, appears once again to have disappeared off the urgent list. Just as the building boom collapses and house building pretty well stops in Dublin West, the Minister and her department refuses to discuss with local principals school enrolment requirements on a recent basis. Last year, the Minister presided over the late formation of 2 all-international schools, one in Castleknock, Schullcullen, and the other, the Educate Together School in Balbriggan. Only international children, no Irish children. The Minister recently sent copies of Dermot Ferriter's biography of Dáil Eireann to schools around the country. I don't think, Minister, that Dáil Eireann or Collins or indeed James Connolly or Padraig Pearse would have envisaged doing what you're doing, which is keeping our children apart, cherishing our children, so that newcomer and immigrant children are being kept apart from local Irish children in schools reserved for them only. Shame on you, Minister, and shame on you for not having the courage to sit down and actually discuss this. Just a few weeks ago, the Minister came into the House to defy the just demands of parents of autistic children for access to ABA. This week we learned that some 17 schools are waiting for the Minister and her counterpart in the Department of Health to sort out resourcing for the special autism units in primary schools. And there's a fine one, Minister, as I've raised with you before, lying locked and empty in Castleknock Educate Together. And you blame the Board of Management. You blame the Board of Management, the principal and the teachers. Minister, take responsibility. Take responsibility. You're not a teenager. Take responsibility. The Minister, as a Minister, you've led a charmed life as regards promises for education. I have a feeling, however, that your record is beginning to catch up with you. As economic horizons narrow, hard decisions have to be made. Children should not be the soft targets of reducing expectations. The fact is that the Labour Party's proposal to double the capitation grant would cost only 82 million per year, less than 1% of the total education budget. By increasing the education budget by just 1%, primary schools around the country could be put on a sound financial footing. Parents, principals and teachers could concentrate on children learning. And if parents wanted to fundraise, it would be for the extras, Minister, not for the necessities. Minister, I'm proud of what our teachers, our boards of management, our principals and our parents are doing for our children in our primary school education system. We have some of the best and brightest in Ireland working in primary education. They deserve to be able to give our children the best, and I'm proud to move this resolution on behalf of the Labour Party.
Thank you.